because it's a possibility for anyone to wake up to that, or to wake up from the dream and the illusion and the essentially the delusion of separation, distinctness, struggle, suffering, seeking. That's all really it's a dream in the mind, and it can come to an end.
This is a highlight video of a podcast episode I did with Dr. Angelo Dilullo from the channel SimplyAlwaysAwake. If you're interested in reducing pretty much all anxiety, shame, guilt, resentment, which sounds crazy probably, pay close attention, fasten your seatbelts, because this is going to get really interesting. And for me personally, it was a very inspirational conversation.
It's liberation from the illusion of self in all its aspects. Struggle, reactivity. It's liberation from all of that.
Even reactivity.
Even reactivity.
Yeah, but emotions can still arise, but there's no one, no sense of
subtle.
Someone experiencing them, and no resistance to it.
There's no one resisting. That's right. There's no resistance. An emotion is just what it is. Sadness can arise. Now, some emotions don't arise anymore. What I would say is, and things like shame, guilt, resentment.
Imagine a life without shame, guilt, and resentment. Just imagine it.
Remnants of them could be seen, the conditions perhaps, maybe even a thought, but there's no feeling of that anymore at all. So the emotions, I would say, calm down tremendously.
And these emotions such as guilt and shame and resentment has a lot of personalness to them, and that's maybe why they disappear after the liberation occurs.
Yeah, I would say so. And I would tell anyone listening to this that it probably sounds great to not have those, but be really careful you don't bypass anything, because the path to this, the path to living without, let's say, psychological fear, is learning to live with psychological fear. It's to fully penetrate it. Everything has to be fully penetrated, seen, experienced. And that's when you then I love this saying, what's real will never go away. What's real isn't going to go away, but a lot does go away, because there's a lot that's not real. And it's the aspects of your experience that are laden with struggle, isolation, and a lot of repressed emotion. Because at the core of all of these emotions we're talking about, shame, greed, let's not say greed, but shame, helplessness, resentment. What's at the core of all of those is a fundamental assumption of self and other somewhere.
Yeah.
But also there's a tendency, a conditioned tendency to avoid these emotions that's keeping them sort of feeling like they're festering in there somewhere, right? We're just constantly avoiding. At the core of anything, though, is nothing but clarity.
How does your psychology and behavior change after enlightenment, the liberated state?
I would say the integration happens essentially spontaneously, and that's a wonderful thing about it. But the caveat would be this: that the ideas that we have about health and fortifying ourselves and strengthening ourselves and all that, they largely they essentially fall away. Doesn't mean you don't know how to take care of yourself. You still are going to eat what you want to eat and so forth. But the preoccupation with that, the idea that somehow liberation or awakening or both are going to make things look in any way that you can possibly imagine, it just gets blown out of the water. It just gets blown out of the water. You know, it's very strange. The best I can offer is, generally speaking, I see people have similar proclivities before and after. But if you have a very overarching tendency in life, a habit maybe of obsessive exercise, right, which underpins a fear of death, of weakness, of vulnerability, and many people do this and don't see it. If you have that, I can almost guarantee you it's going to dramatically reduce certainly after liberation, because because of what it was based on will be seen through. So, but generally speaking, people who like to exercise continue to exercise. People who like to, do art will continue to do art. New dimensions of expression come through for sure, and that's really cool to see, especially in artists and musicians, that they may have had the ability to bring that through before, but it usually even gets more poignant. Your ability to really channel some deeper truth through art is beautiful, and the struggle around it will be gone, which is so lovely, because that's a lot of the challenge of being an artist, is the struggle that comes with it too.
The taboo question: how good does this state feel? I'm so glad. The thing that really is touching me here is the motivation and the inspiration, and I think that's important too. Maybe an underestimated component in these talks about awakening and non-duality is the you can do it part, and it's awesome. The awesome part, this is awesome, is not very talked about, for good reasons probably, but I just, like I said in the beginning, it really is a great confirmation for me, who has put so much energy into this, that the confirmation that keep going, this is good, this is you're doing the right thing.
And the caution that you're talking about, and again, some subcultures of teaching and like Neo-Advaita purposely avoids this, and Zen even kind of does too in certain ways, but avoids this talk of like what you get out of it, right? And the enjoyment of let's say non-dual realization. Non-dual specifically is pretty enjoyable.
When he says non-dual experience, it means essentially oneness experience. Non-dual means not two, so it means one.
Non-dual specifically is pretty enjoyable, physically enjoyable, but I can see why there's caution to say those sorts of things. Then again, that's just a transmission style. That's the way they transmit. That's the way they speak. That culture, that the Tony Parsons type of culture, whatever. It's fine, and it can be quite potent and powerful to point that way. But it's a style, right? So, for instance, there's other people, like I think of Gary Weber, very practical, pragmatic guy, deeply realized guy, no doubt about it. I saw a video where he described, I don't know what it is, but there was a questionnaire somewhere. It's like the non-dual experience questionnaire. It literally asks questions to discern what degree of non-dual experience you have moment to moment. And then I've seen this also other places, but I remember a video where he showed it, and the experience of clear non-dual realization is higher on the chart of enjoyability than even sex, than anything. And I would agree with that. But it's not but I wouldn't say it's necessarily constant, because nothing is constant, and you can also feel pain too. You can't avoid pain at all, physical pain. So physical pain will come. But it's very strange that even physical pain, maybe unless it gets really severe, has a sort of sweetness to it at some point with the non-dual realization, because there's nothing questioning it anymore. There's nothing resisting or avoiding or trying not to feel it. It's just what's happening. So there is the experience of non-dual, no separation, no boundaries. That is physically enjoyable. It's the word I use a lot is intimacy, because I don't have a better word for it. But it's intimate. Like you look at a tree, and there's not a tree over there and me over here. It's just this intimate experience of tree person universe. I don't know how to say it. Movement, stillness, everything, nothing. It's all intermixed though, and it's so beautiful, and it's sublimely empty of any inherent existence too, which is really a trip, and it's wonderful. But it's also not nothingness. I always like to point that out, because nothingness is really conceptual, pretty conceptual actually.
Is liberation, enlightenment, absolutely final? What happens afterwards?
Up until liberation, I might call it. You obviously are familiar with Adyashanti, yeah?
Yeah.
He makes a distinction in the difference between like the death of ego and the death of self. It's a very, very obvious and distinct and final, absolutely final end to something that does happen, for sure. And it's very obvious. I mean, it's beyond obvious. And so in one sense, the spiritual process ends because the one who thought it was going through it completely comes to an end. And that is it's a distinct finality of sorts. But the world you enter then is so impossible to talk about, that anything I can say is just going to be paradoxical. But I will say this: in the relative sense, the body mind, the person, Angelo, there's evolution. Like I definitely see, and again, when I say I now, and I'm talking in this sense, I mean it conventionally because there's no other words to talk about this. But I see that this this expression, this Angelo expression, whatever, does evolve even in a certain sense in the spiritual context. But what I notice it is quicker and easier ability to tune into where someone else is when they're it's all about other people waking up now. That's what it's about. There's nothing to wake up. There's nothing, it's over, right? So what, there's some amazing thing that in the relative sense, I still wake up with people. I wake up when people are waking up and I feel like I'm them doing it. You know, it's just like that, right? It's just immersion. Yeah. So what I notice is that there's a improve over time, and this will decline at some point when there's cognitive decline here. This body mind will ultimately decline and die away and rot in its grave, right? Dust, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, right? And there's something so beautiful with that. But there's definitely a deepening of the ability to completely meet someone in the relative at any level of the relative. Okay. The opposite of that would just so I can maybe point this out for contrast, the opposite of that would be something like always staying in the absolute perspective when I'm talking to people, like never leaving the absolute. There's nobody, there's no one, there's no path, I can talk like that and it's true, but it's not the whole truth because it's totally avoiding the relative world, right? So there's an ability that seems to improve with its ability to totally meet someone completely without any resistance, without any tendency to try to move myself or them into the absolute, because I can do both, right? In the relative world, that tendency just going completely away and meeting someone fully in their own suffering, but just in their whole life, not just suffering, but their whole life as it is. And is as paradoxical as it is, that actually helps them wake up faster. But again, they have to want to wake up. There's something, I would not do that with someone who has no inclination to wake up at all. I wouldn't even mention this. I'm disinclined to even talk about this subject unless someone directly asks me like this, or, you know, I've had so many interactions with people for so long that I started writing about it. Then I started making videos about it just because I know there are people out there who will come in contact with it. But the inclination is not to even talk about this at all with casual friends or work acquaintances. So I just wanted to make that distinction for anyone who's listening to understand that there's no agenda with it at all, zero. But there's, when someone's waking up and I'm interacting with them, they have my attention. And when I not only hear that they want to wake up, but I feel that they're serious about waking up and they're really willing to let go, they have all my attention. And I can go right where they are. And it's fucking awesome. It's amazing to like just wake up again, you know, with someone, as someone, even though it's ultimately going to lead to oblivion, but that's okay.
Okay.
Because it's oblivion for no one. It's all paradoxical.
If you like this and you want to check out the whole episode, it's on my extra channel, Phredosophy. It was very inspiring talking to Angelo. And this is what I'm interested in these days. I try to translate it in a way that can be relatable. But it has the same motivation as I had with making, embarrassing myself on the street in public. It's the same kind of motivation that I had for wanting to make YouTube videos and comedy and talking to girls. Because I just want to be free of fear, to feel free and to be loving and have fun. And I want to be true to myself. I want to see what's really true in me and in others. In reality, because it's nicer when you're not bullshitting or being bullshitted. Life gets a lot more full that way. So check out the episode on my channel. I have 3 other episodes of the Phredosophy show. See you in the next video.